What if all the bad things that happen in your life aren't a coincidence, but part of a plan that started long before you were born? This is the story of a family that discovers that horror doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it comes from the blood. The movie begins with the obituary of Ellen Taper Lee, mother of Annie Graham. At the funeral, Annie delivers a eulogy. She speaks distantly of her mother, saying she was a private woman. Her husband Steve, her son Peter, and her daughter Charlie are also present. After the funeral, Charlie is restless, constantly drawing and appearing to have strange behaviors. Peter, her teenage brother, is more disconnected. Annie works as an artist, creating miniatures in her workshop, while Steve handles the practical aspects of the home. At home, Charlie says her grandmother wanted her to be a boy. She also mentions seeing a figure in the room after Ellen's death. Meanwhile, Steve discovers that his mother's grave was desecrated, but decides not to tell her immediately so as not to upset her. Annie begins attending a support group for grieving people. There, she reveals that her family has a history of mental illness. Her father died of starvation, her brother committed suicide, and her mother had a very complex relationship with her and her children. She also says Ellen took great care of Charlie as a baby, to the point that Annie barely raised her. One day, Peter wants to go to a party. Annie forces him to take Charlie along. At the party, Peter slips away to smoke marijuana. Charlie, unaware the cake has nuts, eats it and suffers an allergic reaction. Peter gets her into the car and drives quickly toward the hospital. In the middle of the attack, Charlie sticks her head out the window, gasping for air. Peter swerves to avoid an animal on the road, and Charlie hits her head against a pole. She dies instantly. Peter is paralyzed by shock. He drives home, goes into his room, and says nothing. The next day, Annie finds her daughter's body in the car. The family is devastated. Peter is in a state of guilt and Annie in a state of anguish. Charlie's buried. Annie locks herself in her workshop. Peter begins having nightmares. One night, he sees a strange light moving through his room. Charlie seems to be present in objects or sounds, like the clicking sound she made with her tongue. At the support group, Annie doesn't feel ready to talk, but on her way out, she meets Joan, a kind woman who says she lost her son and grandson. They become friends. Joan invites her to her house and offers her emotional support. Meanwhile, Peter continues seeing strange things. Annie goes to Joan's house again. This time, Joan tells her she participated in a seance and managed to contact her grandson. She shows her how she did it, and Annie is disturbed by the experience but also intrigued. Joan gives her a sheet with instructions to perform the ritual on her own. That night, Annie wakes Steve and Peter to hold the session at home. She connects with what seems to be Charlie's spirit. The glass moves, lights flicker, and Peter panics. Annie gets scared too. Steve gets upset, believing she has lost control. After the ritual, Peter begins hearing whispers, feeling presences, and seeing shadows. Annie discovers strange symbols in the attic and finds books hidden by her mother about spiritual invocations. Peter has another episode in class, rising from his chair with his face contorted by an expression he can't control, and screams in front of everyone. At home, Annie looks through old photos and finds her mother with Joanne, both dressed for rituals. She discovers Joanne is part of a cult and that their friendship wasn't a coincidence. Annie also discovers her mother's body, missing from the cemetery, is in her own attic, headless and surrounded by symbols. She tries to warn Steve, but he doesn't believe her. She asks him to burn Charlie's notebook to stop what's happening. He does it, but he catches fire and dies right in front of her. Annie goes into a trance, her eyes turning empty. Peter wakes up alone in his bed. His face shows signs of the recent trauma. His mother is watching him without him realizing it. He goes downstairs and finds his father's charred corpse in the living room, and his mother is up above, like Spider-Man, watching him without him realizing it. The atmosphere becomes completely silent. Peter, sad and confused, looks back and finds an older, naked man with a smiling face. Then he looks at the ceiling and his spider mother is gone. And when he looks forward again, his mother is down there and starts chasing him. He quickly goes up to the attic of his house and locks himself in while telling his mother he's sorry and to forgive him. His mom thinks she is Zinedine Zidane, banging her head against the attic door. Then Peter looks around. Inside the attic, he finds a photo of himself and lit candles as if it were a ritual. Then he looks up and sees his mother floating, trying to saw off her own head with a wire. Then he sees 3 naked older people looking at him and decides to escape by jumping out the window like Superman. Peter remains unconscious in the garden, and an orb of light settles over his body. Upon waking up, his expression changes. He calmly observes the treehouse and sees his mother's headless body floating. As he heads to the treehouse, he finds naked people along the way. Peter, now apparently possessed, enters the treehouse. Inside, there are several naked human figures in a reverent posture. In the background are the decapitated bodies of his mother and grandmother. There's an idol with his sister Charlie's head wearing a crown. Joanne appears with other cult members, and they tell him he's no longer in that body, Peter, but Payman, one of the kings of hell, and that he now has the male body his grandmother had prepared for him. They place the crown on his head, and everyone calls him King Payman. The movie ends with a still image of Peter with an expressionless face being worshipped by the cult members while calm music plays. Hereditary shows how, in the midst of pain, it's easy to cling to whatever promises comfort, even if it comes disguised as light. Annie had the chance to break the cycle of darkness in her family, but instead of seeking a way out in truth or in God, she let herself be carried away by rituals and forces she didn't understand, and that opened the door to something much worse. The moral is profound. Finding meaning in suffering isn't wrong, but there are paths that don't heal you. They only drag you down deeper. Sometimes true liberation isn't found in connecting with the dead, but in healing what has remained alive.